Behind me is match angler Nathan Lumb, who holds the fishery record for 138 pounds of hide in 5.5 hours at this fishery. Later, Nathan's going to give us a run through on how to fish the pole.
Right. The reason that a lot of match anglers fish using poles these days is that it gives you a lot more accuracy over your feeding, a lot more accuracy and control over your rigs and presentation, and you're able to get your bait, your rig to exactly where the feeding fish are on a continuous basis. The pole I'm using today is a Daiwa tournament pole. The standard length of the pole comes at 16 metres. It's one of the top end poles. It's very light but also gives you a lot of strength in there as well. As I say, this pole you can actually fish up to with parallel extensions, which just means extra section like this keeps sliding on, and you can get to any length. I basically can fish this pole up to 19 metres comfortably, and you would expect to pay for a pole like this about £2,000 plus, but they do go up to about £2,500. Or in a match fishing situation, I like to have a number of top kits, as we call them, which are the end sections of your pole, which are elasticated, set up. This then gives you more options. You can have duplicate rigs set up in case you break one of them or you tangle, which invariably happens. Also, what I have here are different top kits set up that are identical in the floats and of the elastic. However, they are set at different depths, allowing me to move the float up, and rather than move that all of the time, it allows me to cover the water column at all different levels throughout the match without having to change the same kit each time. It just gives me more options. What I also have there is all of my rigs pre-made and stored on these winders. Within this unit here, there's hundreds of these. They're all set up on each winder. It tells me what line's set on there, and also on the float it tells me what size the float is for what size shotting capacity. Now I always have 2 or 3 winders with exactly the same floats on, again just so should it happen I can change those straight away and back fishing as soon as possible. The way I attach my rig to the end of my pole is via a Dacron connector attached to my elastic. Here I make one simple loop in my main line to push that through. The Dacron connector pushes through, and then just pulls tight, and there's no way that's coming off now, that's connected securely. Of the pole, it's only the very end section, which we call the top kit, which is different, and this is because it contains the actual elastic that runs through the pole. That gives you adequate length of elastic within the kit and will stretch to about 10 metres in length. One of the key things to do when fishing the pole at long lengths is to just ensure that you set the pole rollers out so that the pole doesn't tip or jolt as you're shipping in and out. So 2 pole rollers makes this a lot easier. Sometimes if we're fishing at very long lengths, I think nothing of using actual 3 pole rollers just to roll the pole back very, very smoothly and prevent any mishaps with spilt bait or tangles around the end of my pole. So just move the pole out across the pole rollers, and then I just use the bump bar here at the front. I can lower my rig down. In windy conditions it saves the pole moving side to side, so the accuracy and the control over the float at the end is perfect. As I'm fishing up in the water at the moment for the hide, I'm using casters as my main bait. We always keep the casters in water. It just stops them turning, and when I mean turning, it's just slowing down the life cycle of the actual caster. If you left them out without putting them in water, they'd go a very dark colour and would actually start to float. Obviously you don't want them floating. So when the pole's at its chosen length where we're fishing today, I just simply turn the pole over, allowing the cup to go upside down, gently bang the pole, and a few casters are discharged into the water. What I'm trying to do is catch the fish in the top kind of 18 inches of water. So what I'll do is I'll tip some casters out of the pole cup, then lower my line and my hook bait down so that they're falling at exactly the same rate as the 3 offerings of casters that I'm putting in. If I don't get a bite by the time the float settles, I'll simply in my head count to about 5, lift the pole up, tip some more casters in and drop it down again. Once all the casters have come out of the pole cup, if I've not hit a fish in that point and I've not had bites, so I feel that the bait is still intact, I'll just put the pole slightly to one side, a couple of yards away, pick up a little bit of water in the cup and sprinkle that over where I'm fishing. It just creates a little bit of noise on the top of the water that the fish thinks bait's going in, and you can sometimes mug the odd fish doing that.
Hole on the roller, just nice and gentle, keeping the float tip to the water, just guiding it back in, letting the elastic do the work all the time.
The rest of the kit that we're using is exactly the same for any type of fishing, with keep nets, landing nets, disgorgers, the line, everything's exactly the same. The only difference is that we're using a pole today instead of a rod and reel approach.
Not all species of fish are happy or willing to feed on the surface like the eyed have been today, so now it's time to put the bait in and go and fish on the bottom and see what we can catch. So now just changed to a deeper rig, plumbed it, fishing directly on the bottom at about 5.5 foot deep. Right, just tried fishing on the deck then, but the smaller fish are just intercepting the casters on the way down through the water columns. So what we'll do is we'll put a bigger bait on now and just see if we can try and tempt something on the bottom. To roll it round onto the back of the hook. So I'm now fishing on the deck, but invariably we're having to wait longer for the bites than we were when we were fishing shallow. When fishing shallow, the fish are competing so much for the feed going in, your bites are almost instant because they want to be at the bait first. So in a match situation, it's a bit of a gamble as to whether to target and catch the eyed, which are coming more regular and tend to be smaller, or have the waiting game where you're fishing down on the deck, but invariably you are going to be catching the bigger fish. Having the puller bung here allows you to pull the elastic that tightens it up at the end of the pole, putting more pressure on the fish to be able to land it. Without the puller bung you could have just have metres and metres of elastic streaming out and no control over the fish. Feels like a barbel. A nice barbel taken, first put in on the deck. There we go. It's been a difficult day today, what with the weather conditions. It's been raining, then very sunny. It's flat calm. The fish haven't really settled too much. However, it just shows you a little bit of perseverance, what you can still catch.